All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. This is episode number 47, and I'm back here with my co-host Trevor Kaufman and the reoccurring guest, Jack Eden, once again. Good to have you back, Jack.
We let this guy back on.
But yeah, we this is going to be an NBA-centered episode, opposite of our episode 2 weeks ago. This is because the NBA is in full swing right now, guys. I mean, this is we're coming down to the wire here. I think the regular season just concluded, and upcoming this next week, starting tomorrow, correct me if I'm wrong, are the play-in games, the play-in games that are new to the NBA season this year, and it's an interesting format to say the least. And I wanted to start off just by talking about each of these games. All right, so I was gonna have us start off by talking about the 7 and 8 seed game in the Eastern Conference, which is the Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. And I wanted to go ahead and just ask you, Jack. What do you think about this game? Who do you think is gonna come out of this?
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. I'm coming to you guys live from Charlottesville, Virginia today, so a little bit of a
Wow.
different scene. But I think this game is going to be really interesting. I think both conferences in general are pretty wide open. Um, but especially coming down and looking at the play-in games here with the Celtics and the Wizards, I think you really have a tale of two different teams right now. I think the Celtics were kind of hot early and they have a couple injuries now. Jaylen Brown's out for the season. So they've kind of been on the downtick recently. And you really have the opposite in the Washington Wizards, who are now healthy, who started off the year very poorly and really underperforming. And now they worked their way up to the 8th seed in the East. So Russell Westbrook's been playing out of his mind. Bradley Beal's dropping 50 a night. So to be honest, I think you got to go with the team that's been playing better as of late. And I really do believe that the Wizards are going to win this game.
Trevor?
I agree with him. I also think the Wizards are going to win this game. Um, they're playing well at the right time. They've gotten healthy over the last few weeks, and it's showing in their play. They've won a lot. They've been stringing together wins.
Mm.
Bradley Beal has been great, and I will give Russell Westbrook a lot of credit during this stretch as well too, because I think he's adjusted his game a little bit. Ryan and I are hard on Russell Westbrook. We give him a lot of flack for the way he plays, but I do think over these last couple of weeks he's done a very good job managing the game, getting others involved, doing whatever it takes to win. And Bradley Beal is obviously the best offensive player on that team, but Russell Westbrook might be the most valuable player to this team's success. And I'm with Jack. I think the Wizards are hot right now. I will say, though, this is the 7-8 game. So the winner of this game is going to get Brooklyn in the first round.
Yeah.
And if I'm a Celtics or a Wizards fan, I would rather play Philadelphia, especially if I'm a Wizards fan, because Philadelphia is playing good, but not playing great right now. And I think Washington could give Philly a run for their money in the first round. Unfortunately, I don't think they'll give Brooklyn a run for their money in the first round. So obviously, I'm not saying either of these teams are going to tank, but it's kind of interesting. Like the loser of this game might not feel so bad because they're going to get another shot in the 8 seed game, and then they're probably going to play a weaker opponent, Philadelphia, at least in my opinion. But getting back to the topic at hand, I do have Washington winning this game.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor makes a few really good points, and I wanted to point out specifically like the fact that you said, this team who loses this game, right? Not only do they get another opportunity to still get in at the 8 seed, but they get to play, pretty objectively the worst of the two teams between Brooklyn and Philadelphia, right? I mean, I think all of us here would agree we'd rather play Philadelphia than Brooklyn come playoff time, right? I think we can all agree on that. So I mean, whoever loses this game has a pretty good opportunity, right? Because you're gonna go play either the Pacers or the Hornets, a very, very winnable game, and then go up against Philly in a series, which again I would personally much rather do than go up against Brooklyn. But I mean, I agree with both of you. I don't want to be too redundant here, but I mean, I think Washington's going to win this game. I was kind of surprised that Trevor chose Washington because Trevor's been a pretty big, at least more so than me, like more of a bigger proponent for Boston over the last few months and years. Saying, I know, Trevor, you think that they have a lot of talent. Maybe that I know you expected them to do better this year. Than the 7 seed. But yeah, I think the injuries are tough. I mean, Jaylen Brown especially. I mean, it's just when you lose a guy like him who, you could make the argument that he was better than Tatum this year. Like, they're both fantastic, but Brown was really, really good this year. He was really, really good. And for him to be out for this game and for, I think, the whole entirety of the playoffs, right? Looks like it. That's just like a knife in their back that I don't think that they can move on from. And I think that Washington's too hot. And in the 1-game series, you got to go with the hotter team, the healthier team. So I agree. I think Washington's going to pull this game out.
All right. With that being said, we're going to move on to the other Eastern Conference play-in game, and this is where the play-in tournament gets a little weird.
Yeah.
So the Pacers are the 9 seed. They will host the 10 seed Charlotte Hornets in the play-in on the other Eastern Conference play-in game on Tuesday. The winner of that game will play the loser of the Celtics Wizards game for the 8 seed in the East, and obviously the loser of this game, their season is over. Jack, I'm going to hand it to you. Pacers Hornets, who do you like? And second question, will the winner of this game get the 8 seed? Can the winner of this game hypothetically beat Boston, as we all think?
This game is going to be really interesting, I think. I am a big fan of the Charlotte Hornets. I love watching LaMelo Ball and the way that he's able to incorporate his teammates into the game. Miles Bridges is a human highlight reel, and of course, Scary Terry has been. He's had a few big games this year.
He's scary.
He gets a little dirty with it. So I mean, I think firepower wise, like this is the team that stands out more. This is the team that's more nationally known just because of their social media presence with all of their highlight plays. But Indiana's a solid team with Sabonis and Karis LeVert now contributing out there. I think they kind of underperformed this year, to be honest. I was surprised that they ended up as the 9 seed in kind of a weaker. I think they kind of disappointed this year, but they're a good team. They know how to play. They've been together for a pretty decent amount of time now. So I think this game is going to be really interesting. It hurts Charlotte that they don't have Gordon Hayward. I think that's a big loss, but I mean, I would have to lean towards Charlotte just because of I've seen them more this year than I have the Pacers, and I think the Pacers have kind of underwhelmed this year. And then going to your second question, Trevor, I think they do have a chance to beat Boston, who's a little banged up right now. It'll be interesting to see that game. I wouldn't count on it. I would probably guess that Boston will be the 8 seed, considering Tatum would be the best player on the floor. And typically, especially in a 1-game do or die setting, it's usually the team with the best player on the floor ends up winning. So we'll see how that goes. There's definitely a chance to beat Boston, but I just don't know how likely it would be.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to this game, I think that it's interesting because I think we can all see there's a clear drop between the 7 and 8 and the 9 and 10. I mean, like when I look at Washington and Boston, even Boston when they're not healthy, I think they're more of a threat to a Philly, right, than the Pacers or the Hornets. I don't really think the Pacers or the Hornets will be much of a threat to either of the teams they'll play if they make it into the actual playoffs and play. Either I think they'll play the Sixers. Yeah, they'll play the Sixers, right? But I think that the Pacers. I have to go with the Pacers in this game. And it's really because I really think Jack's right. They underperformed this year. I really think they should have been better than they were. And Trevor and I talked about something off the air the other day that I think is worth mentioning. Nate McMillan was their head coach in previous years, right? And I think this is really important because he's now the coach of the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are, I believe, the 5 seed in the East now. Right, they're playing much better than they were in past years, and sure, a lot of that has to do with their players getting older, developing, improving on the floor. But I think a lot of it has to do with McMillan being their head coach. I think he's a really, really good head coach. His teams play above expectations in the regular season year after year. That's what the Pacers did year after year. They were the 4 through 6 seed, I think, for at least 2 or 3 years in a row under McMillan. And you look at the Pacers now, and they just underperformed. Right, with a similar roster. I mean, you lose Oladipo, LeVert comes back, filling that Oladipo role. You have Sabonis, Brogdon. I mean, this is a solid roster. Miles Turner, and you don't hit expectations. I think that has to do a lot with the lack of McMillan being there. And I just wanted to highlight that because I really think that them cutting him loose was a big mistake. I really do. But I think the Pacers will win this game. I'm not a fan of Charlotte. Because LaMelo's coming off an injury, right? They've lost 5 in a row, right? And I think that really, we said this in the last one, but I really think that momentum and how hot you are is important coming into a game like this. And I think the Pacers I think they have better players. I really do. I think Brogdon, Turner, LeVert. I think, and Sabonis, I think those four right there, I think that just makes them a better starting roster. And I think that in this game, I think that that's going to, push them over the top. But I mean, this is a toss-up. This is really a toss-up. Either of them can win this game. And whoever they end up playing, if it's the Celtics or the Wizards, I think the Celtics or the Wizards will beat them. I think there's just a gap between that 7 and 8 and that 9 and 10. But Trevor, what do you think?
I agree with both of you about the gap. I do think Washington and Boston will be the 7 and 8 seeds, however they, in whatever order.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the injury report for Indiana, and this is going to be an issue because Indiana doesn't – Malcolm Brogdon is listed as out for tomorrow's game. Aaron Holiday is listed as out for tomorrow's game. Jeremy Lamb is listed as out for tomorrow's game. So Indiana is going to be a little shorthanded. Malcolm Brogdon is clearly one of their starters, clearly one of their key players. It sounds like they're still going to have LeVert, Sabonis, and Miles Turner. And you talk about the other team, the Charlotte Hornets, as you guys have both mentioned, they are, they're struggling. They've lost to a lot of good teams as of late. They've lost to some playoff teams, and they lost to Washington yesterday in a very closely contested game. So with all that being said, I am going to go with Indiana. I do think this Charlotte team is a little bit – I just think they're a little immature. I think LaMelo Ball is a little immature.
Yeah.
Some of their other younger guys, Miles Bridges, are a little immature. They're not quite used to a playoff feel-like game. It's going to require more defense. It's going to require more intensity and more focus. And I just think for a younger team, that's going to be a bit of an issue. So even shorthanded, I do like Indiana, but you guys are right. I theoretically have it as Indiana, Boston for the 8 seed. Boston at home, I like the Celtics. Even without Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum's been playing great. Kemba Walker's been playing better. They got Marcus Smart back about a month and a half ago. So I still think Boston has some players, and I still like their roster over Indiana's, especially since Indiana is shorthanded right now. So I will go Indiana with the victory tomorrow, and then Boston will beat them on Thursday for the 8 seed.
Well, there you have it. And with that, we can move on to, in my opinion, the more interesting conference in terms of playing games. And that involves the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors, and this is the 7-8 matchup. And I'll tell you guys, I think going into the season, no one could have predicted this happening. But I'm glad it did. It's gonna be a fun game. And I wanted to turn over to you, Jack. What do you think? Who's gonna win this game? Steph Curry or LeBron James?
Right. I can tell you for a fact I will be watching every single second of this game.
I will be as well.
Considering the fact that the winner will play Trevor and my sons.
Yep.
So it will be a very interesting game to watch, and I think definitely the most exciting of the 4.
Yep.
You have all the star power of LeBron and Anthony Davis and company versus Steph Curry and Draymond. Both teams have championship experience. Both teams know what it is like to be in a playoff environment. Then both of them have played in game 7s before. So very similar to a game 7, not necessarily a win or go home, but a win in advance or a lose in a potential win and go home game. So I don't think either team wants to lose. I think both teams will definitely be fighting their hardest. And I think it's going to be a very interesting game to watch. I think if the Warriors want to win, Curry needs to be huge. And obviously if the Lakers want to win, they need production from their star players. But I'm going to be honest, and this isn't not what I want to say, but I don't think I can bet against LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the defending champions. I do think even though they're coming back, LeBron's not fully healthy, Davis is in whatever state he's in. I think in general they have a better team, and I think those playmakers outside of those two guys are better playmakers than what Curry has around him. Yeah. And ultimately, I think that's going to be the difference in this game and the reason why the Lakers will end up facing my Suns in the first round.
Trevor?
Jack, my friend, you are right again. We are so proud of our Phoenix Suns. I love this team. And I still think we can beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. I really do believe that. I do think it's going to be a challenge. But yes, the Lakers are going to beat Golden State. Curry's been magnificent. I'm back and forth on whether he should be the MVP, him, Jokic, or maybe Chris Paul. All three of them have a very decent argument. But the Warriors don't have, outside of Steph Curry, the Warriors just don't have a dependable scorer. And I think they're going to need someone like Andrew Wiggins to have a game like he did against the Phoenix Suns a couple days ago, where he went for 38 against my Suns. So I don't know if they're going to get that from an Andrew Wiggins, or maybe they get Jordan Poole or I don't know, Toscano Anderson or somebody. It's just like the names I'm listing off, I just don't see them being able to keep up with LeBron, Anthony Davis, Schroeder, Kuzma coming off the bench, Harrell coming off the bench. So I think the Lakers are deeper. They're bigger. They're going to have the Warriors are also going to have a lot of matchup issues. The Warriors have no size. I believe Kevon Looney is their starting center, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to have absolutely no size. They have no backup center coming off the bench. I don't think this is a good matchup for the Warriors. So I think LA wins this game rather easily. And the only way Golden State wins is if Steph Curry goes for at least 50. I honestly believe that. I think he's going to have to go for 50. And I think Andrew Wiggins is going to have to go for 30. I just don't see a way the Warriors can win this game. It's just a horrible matchup for them. And I don't love their roster. And I think LA is really focused right now. And it sucks, but my Phoenix Suns and Jack's Phoenix Suns, we're going to have to see the Lakers on Saturday in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are right. You guys are probably right. But, I think you should have a little bit of hope. I really think the Warriors, it's definitely possible they win this game. And not just because of Steph Curry, but because of what's happening with the Lakers. I mean, just in this past game, LeBron James hurt his ankle once again. He had to leave the game. I mean, he's definitely not 100%. He's really not even close. And when he said that comment about like, I won't be 100% again, I kind of laughed at him. But, watching him hurt that ankle again, it just like, it kind of made me step back and look at it and be like, maybe he's right. And this is going to be kind of sad if this is the case. I really hope in the offseason he can get it back to 100%. But, his ankle it's hurting, right? And it's definitely going to impact him in this game. It's going to impact him throughout the playoffs if they move on from this game. And I think that the Warriors have a chance here. Both of these teams, very defensive teams. I actually didn't realize the Warriors are fifth in defensive rating in the NBA. They're actually a really, really solid defensive team. I didn't fully realize that. And the Lakers are the best defensive team in basketball. So both of these teams are top of the line defensive teams. So it'll be really interesting to watch. But Trevor's right. I mean, the Warriors don't have a second scorer, really not a third scorer. I mean, Wiggins has been an adequate second scorer this year. I think he's averaging like 18, 19 a game. So he's been adequate. Hasn't missed a game all year, I don't think. But yeah, they don't have that third scorer. Oubre is out. So like, if there were to be a third scorer, it would probably be Oubre, but he's not healthy. They tried to rush him back and I think he re-injured. I think was it a wrist? It was something, along those lines, but he re-injured that, and so he can't play. So that's definitely going to hurt them. But the Lakers are deeper. They should win this game. I think they'll win this game. But LeBron is not 100%. Anthony Davis also not 100%. At least it doesn't seem like it to me. And so I think that the Warriors definitely can win. But I think ultimately the Lakers will win the game.
I will say one more thing.
Oh,
God. Sorry, go ahead.
It's going to be really interesting to see how they defend Steph Curry, I think, as well. You have Schroeder. You can switch a bunch of guys onto him. But going back to what Trevor was talking about with that Suns game where we lost them last week, Curry only had, I think, 17 points. I think he was held under 20. But a lot of our defense was focused on trapping him off of screens and making the other guys beat us, which I think is the strategy that teams have to have, especially in a one-game, winner go home, winner don't advance type of setting. But that's where, Andrew Wiggins stepped up and had 38 points. So it'll be interesting to see if they kind of try and contain Curry or if they try and take the ball out of his hands and play 4-on-3 the rest of the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that'll definitely be interesting.
It's a good point you make there, Jack. I wanted to make one more point about the Lakers. They've won, I believe, 5 or 6 in a row. So they're playing good basketball right now, regardless of who's healthy or who's not. They've won their last 5 games. So the Lakers are coming in with a little bit of momentum right now. They're going to have home court. LeBron will play Wednesday. I think it was a little bit of an abundance of caution. I think he tweaked his ankle a little bit, but I more so think it was an abundance of caution from the Lakers training staff. And I like Jack's strategy. I think the Lakers will employ the strategy. I think they're going to hard trap Curry off of any ball screen, and they're going to force Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green to beat you. And I think if you're the Lakers, you can live with that because Well, that's because they're inconsistent and they're not that good. And especially in a one-off game, Jack's right. You want to do anything you can to neutralize their best player because it's not a 7-game series. You don't get to make adjustments for the next game. You want to do anything and everything you can to slow down their best player. And Steph Curry is obviously Golden State's best player. And I really think that's an interesting point of how the Suns defended him. I do think the Lakers should consider something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Or just get Mikal
Lastly,
Bridges because
too-
Mikal Bridges is the best on-ball defender in the NBA.
okay. Jack, were you say
Boys.
something?
Lastly, too, I do want to point out. Lastly, I wanted to point out Game 7 of 2016, I believe the year was. The Cavs did end up winning that game, but I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers trapped Curry on pretty much everything that they could, and Draymond Green went for 34 points. That game was on fire. So the Warriors might need a Game 7 2016 type performance from Draymond Green in order to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, they're definitely going to make the rest of the players beat them. But I mean, you have to do that when the opposing team does have the league MVP, the 2021 MVP, so
Could be.
We'll see what happens.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
Should be.
Not going to be, but he should be.
Should be.
I didn't know we were talking about Chris Paul.
Unbelievable. We won't get into this right now, but Steph Curry should win MVP. Anyway, moving on from this game, which will be a really interesting one. We wanted to talk about the last play-in game, which is the Memphis Grizzlies versus the San Antonio Spurs. And to me, like, this seems like the most like under the radar, quiet play-in game. I don't know. I don't see anybody talking about it. I think everyone's kind of written off both teams. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't know if either of you have anything to say about this game, who you think is going to win, and if they can make any noise if they were to win this game.
Trevor, I'll defer to you.
I don't. Both these teams are, I will say, aren't very good, but I do think their coaching staffs are both very good. I really like Taylor Jenkins in Memphis, and Greg Popovich is obviously one of the greatest coaches of all time in San Antonio. I don't know who's going to win this game. I really don't. I'm like, part of me thinks Memphis because they're at home and they're a little bit better. So yeah, I'll go with Memphis. I don't really believe in San Antonio. I don't believe in Memphis either, for that matter. I'll make this quick, I guess. The Grizzlies will win this game. I think Jaren Jackson coming back will help them out a little bit. John Morant I think he'll have a big game against San Antonio. But no, I don't think this team will beat Golden State, who they would be slated to play next if my prediction stood true. We saw them play yesterday, and it was a decently competitive game. Golden State ended up pulling away at the end. I just don't think Memphis or San Antonio, they just don't have playoff roster talent. They don't have elite players yet. They have good players. John Morant could be an elite player one day. DeMar DeRozan's past his prime. But neither of these teams are playoff caliber teams in the Western Conference. And you just look at the difference between Golden State and the Lakers. And then you look at Memphis and San Antonio. I think there's a huge drop off there. So I don't see either of these teams making any noise. Memphis will beat San Antonio. That's all I'll say.
Jack?
Interesting. Again, in a one game, this will be a winner go home game. I have to go with the experience here, and I think I'm going to go with Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs in this game. They have DeRozan. They have a good core. That Spurs organization knows how to coach, how to handle itself, and how to succeed ultimately. So they haven't had the greatest year. They lost LaMarcus Aldridge. They don't have any of the star talent that either of the other two teams have in the West. But to make this quick, I think that they can win a close one on the road at Memphis and then ultimately lose to probably Golden State Warriors in the next game. But that's just my take.
Yeah, I mean, Jack has a good point about the playoff experience. Obviously Popovich being the head coach of the Spurs is a big advantage. But I feel like most people do this. I think you just have to go with the more exciting team in the Grizzlies. Like, the Grizzlies aren't any world beaters, but I mean, I think that they're definitely the more exciting team with more exciting future. You have just John Morant and Jaren Jackson. In my opinion, if they had a healthy Jaren Jackson the entire season, I think the Grizzlies are definitely in over the Warriors, like in this in the 8th seed. I think they might even be higher. I mean, I think Jaren Jackson's a really good player, and unfortunately, he missed most of the season. I think he only played like 10 games, maybe. I think it was somewhere around there. 11 games. He's played 11 games this year. So he's really been shaking off the rust the entire year. and really not playing up to the level he was last year. But I think with a fully healthy Jaren Jackson, I think this team could be much better than they were. But regardless, I am also going to go the Grizzlies. I think that with Jackson there, with Morant there, and at their home stadium, I think that that'll make a little bit of a difference. I don't think San Antonio I just don't think they have enough talent. I don't think they have enough talent. Trevor made a great point. DeRozan past his prime, and they don't have any real like star talent. Although I guess neither team really does, unless you want to say Morant's a star, but I don't think he's quite there yet.
It's like a half star.
Yeah, but sure. But regardless, I think the Grizzlies pulled this game out. And then if they play the Warriors, I think they could beat the Warriors. I mean, I really do. I think they could beat the Warriors, especially if the Warriors are coming off a loss and the Grizzlies coming off a win. I mean, that might make a little bit of a difference. And they just played. It was a pretty close game. Curry had 44, I think, something like that. So, if they can hold them to less than 44, I think they could win. And then maybe steal a game or two from Utah, right? Utah is going to be the one. Maybe they could steal a couple games from Utah. But we'll see what happens there. But I think with that just about does it for the play-in games, which, again, start tomorrow and last through the 21st, I think, right?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, there you go. So those are the days for that. And we wanted to move on and continue to talk some NBA and talk about specifically some playoff series, outside of the play-in tournament. And Trevor, I wanted to toss this over to you and ask you, like, what's a series that you wanted to talk about, a series you found a little bit interesting upcoming this next week?
Well, I wanted to talk about my Phoenix Suns. I'm just kidding. No, I want to talk about I do want to talk about the Portland-Denver series. Ryan stole the series that I really wanted to talk about, Milwaukee, Miami, but I'll leave it to him to talk about that one. So I'm going to go with Portland, Denver, which I think is going to be another really entertaining series. And I'm going to say it right here. I like the Portland Trailblazers in this one. And here's why. They are deep. They have length. They have unbelievable guard play, which I think is huge come playoff time. The only thing they don't have, which is what I look for in a playoff team, is they're actually a terrible defensive team. I believe they're 29th in the NBA in defensive rating, which is a huge problem. So what that makes me think is, one, that they're a bad defensive team, but two, maybe they don't play as hard. Maybe their defense will turn up a little bit since it's the playoffs now. I would believe that could be the case. But they have the firepower to beat Denver and pull this 6-3 upset, and they have the firepower to make a run. Because Damian Lillard's been playing great. CJ McCollum has been playing really well since he came back from his injury. The game he had against my Phoenix Suns, he couldn't miss. I was about to break my TV watching him make all those step-back threes. And Denver they have depth at scoring. Norman Powell, Carmelo Anthony, Nurkic can give them 20 on any given night. They have a lot of guys that can beat you. They have a lot of shooting, and they have an elite player in Damian Lillard. Denver, I love Jokic. I still think he should be MVP over Curry slightly. Wow. But I see what Michael Porter's doing. Michael Porter has been unbelievable since Jamal Murray went down. I don't know. I just don't know how he'll be in the playoffs. I think there's a different level of pressure and a different level of expectation in the playoffs. And I think Portland will have guys that they can put on him. I think Robert Covington is a guy you can throw on him. I think another guy off the bench, maybe a Derek Jones Jr., is a guy with length and size that can guard a Michael Porter Jr. So I think Portland will have matchups for him. And I don't love Denver's roster outside of those two. Paul Millsap's getting older. PJ Dozier's okay. Aaron Gordon's been okay for them, but he hasn't been great. So for me, I think Portland has the better roster, and I could see an upset in 7 games for the Trailblazers.
Wow. Jack, any thoughts? Oh, wait.
I have to say that I agree with Trevor. I do think – can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right. I do think Portland is going to win this series. They've played better as of late than the Nuggets have. They're hot right now. They've won 6 of their last 7, and they really, in my opinion, should have beat the Phoenix Suns in that close finish with the foul on Booker at the end of the game. But you have their series. The team is hot. I think they have a bunch of guys with length who can defend. Not surprised that when Trevor brought up the numbers of how poor their defense had been this year, but I think, and I think that will happen a lot from Portland. And I think, Covington, Melo can defend a little bit. They have Derrick Jones Jr. off the bench. They have guys who can come and play if they need to. So watch out for the firepower and Damian Lillard kind of just taking over this series and beating the Nuggets in, I think, 6 or 7 games.
Wow. I mean, here's the thing. You guys both talk a lot about the Trailblazers, talk up their offensive firepower, and kind of ignore their – well, Trevor didn't really ignore it, but, they're a terrible defensive team. They're 29th out of 30 teams on the defensive side of the ball. Trevor pointed that out, and I want to emphasize that because this team relies heavily on offense. And obviously, right, when you have guards undersized like McCollum and Lillard, you're going to be reliant on your offensive prowess. And I think they're going to have to play really well. Lillard's going to have to be almost as good as he had to be last year when the Blazers were worse, when he was just, being unbelievable in the bubble or in that season in general. But I think that the Nuggets are the more balanced team. And I can't emphasize this enough. I keep doing it, but I'm going to do it again. I thought they were going to collapse without Murray. Not collapse, take a step back without Murray. I don't think they've really done that. Sure, they're not as hot as they were, but you look at their last 10. They've won 6 of their last 10. That's fine. The Blazers have won 8 of the last 10. It's not that big of a difference. And I think the Nuggets are much more balanced. I think that they're a solid defensive team. I think they're top 15, top half of the league in defense, and they're top 10 in offense. This team's balanced. Porter hits 45% of his threes. Jokic is obviously an MVP candidate. And, they have a decent supporting cast even without Jamal Murray. I mean, you have Will Barton, you have Aaron Gordon, you have Gary Harris, you have Monte Morris. You have guys who can hit the three at a decent clip, and play decent defense. And I think
Monte Morris. All right.
I mean, to be fair, Trevor, he's shooting 38% from 3 this year. It's pretty decent. All right. That's pretty decent. Regardless, my point is they're the more balanced team, I think, in a 7-game series, unless Lillard goes, unworldly, which is always possible. Lillard's one of my favorite players in the NBA. I love watching. He's one of my favorite players. And he can always pop off, go for 40 in a series. But I think that the Nuggets are the safer pick. I think they're the more consistent team on both ends of the floor. And I think in the 7-game series, you're going to see them pull it out. But I don't know. It'll be an interesting series.
Here's why I want to counter your point here, Ryan.
Sure.
And I want you to go back to the bubble and what Jamal Murray meant for this Denver team during the playoff run. And that 1-2 punch that him and Jokic had, who's going to fill those shoes? Michael Porter will fill it somewhat.
He can.
But I don't think Michael Porter is not as good of a shot creator as Jamal Murray is. I think catch and shoot Michael Porter is excellent. If he's open, he can make a shot anywhere on the floor. But I just think the shot creating and the leadership and the crunch time scoring that Jamal Murray brought to this Denver Nuggets team during their playoff run, I just think that's too big of a void to fill. And they're playing a really good team. Portland is a very, very good basketball team that is kind of finding their stride at the last moment. So for me, I do think the Jamal Murray injury was masked in the regular season, but I think it will expose itself in this playoff series. One other thing, completely off topic. I'm just looking at these offensive and defensive rating rankings, and my Phoenix Suns are top 10 in both. And I just wanted to throw that in there because it put it out of my face.
Yeah. I mean, look, seriously. I mean, go ahead.
Quickly, just to build off of Trevor's point, I don't think we have to argue this too much because whoever wins this series is just going to lose to the Phoenix Suns in the next one. So
okay,
that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, all right. When the Phoenix Suns lose to the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round of the playoffs, you guys can come back on this podcast and tell me how much you hate LeBron James. It's okay. Look, we've all been there before. I personally hate Kevin Durant for what he did to my Cleveland Cavaliers 2 years in a row. You guys can develop a hatred for LeBron James and Anthony Davis, okay? It can happen. But we'll see what happens. Maybe the Suns somehow manage to win a series with no playoff experience in their belt. I don't know if that's going to happen. But regardless, we can move on to the next playoff series. You guys can we can go to the next playoff series. The one that Trevor wanted to pick, but the one I took, which is the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. And if you don't mind, I was just going to talk about this for just a second. I think that this is going to be similar to last year. I really do. The Heat beat them in 5 games last year. Giannis, I think Trevor reminded me that Giannis was not playing in the one game that the Bucks won. I think they were down 3-0 when they won that game, so the series is pretty much over. And I really like the Miami Heat in this game. And I really think that they're playing their best basketball at the right time. Won 8 of their last 10 games. Jimmy Butler's fully healthy. Their team's fully healthy. Bam Adebayo's playing well. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero also playing well. And, I really like this team in playoff basketball. They remind me, at this point, they're just a more experienced version of the Phoenix Suns. I'm serious. They really play pretty similarly, right? They're good on both ends of the floor. They have one defined leader, Jimmy Butler and Chris Paul, right? Guys who have a lot of playoff experience. And I think that this team's going to be able to beat Milwaukee. I'm not a fan of Milwaukee come playoff time, year in and year out. They aren't good enough. It's never good enough with Milwaukee. Giannis shows up, but he doesn't show up in crunch time. And without Giannis being able to hit shots from the outside, to hit shots outside of the paint consistently, I don't really see how this team can go deep into the playoffs. And I think that Miami's just more well-rounded and has beaten them before when it matters most. So I like Miami in this series. I think they will win in 6 games. I think Milwaukee will play better than they did last year, but ultimately I think Miami will pull this series out in 6.
Go ahead, Jack.
That's an interesting take. First off, not about the series necessarily, but comparing the Heat to the Suns, I kind of think of them more as like the San Antonio Spurs of the past, as in you have players who are good and you have who you kind of build on and go through with your team. But at the same time, you have role players who know how to step up, who have playoff experience, and who can succeed if your star players aren't playing very well. I think of, Kawhi Leonard the year that they did win, even though he was the best player in that series. At that time, he was a role player for that team. The Boris Diaws, the Patty Mills of those teams. That's more of what I see their hero. So in my opinion, I thought your comparison with the Suns was interesting because I think of them more as like a Spursy team right now. But I do think they have played better as of late. But you know what? So have the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is playing well. They have more shooting. They have more defense this year with Drew Holiday there. Chris Middleton's giving them great minutes. They don't have Eric Bledsoe anymore, who, is kind of a little bit of a ball hog. He doesn't really do much as a shooter, which I think you need to surround Giannis with. And I think this past offseason, they addressed the needs that they needed, the changes that they needed to make in order to be successful in the playoffs. And I do think this year that they have enough firepower to beat this Miami Heat team. I think it's going to be a really interesting series. I also think the best defender against Giannis in the NBA over the last 2 years has been Bam Adebayo. So I'm really curious to see that matchup between the two of those guys. But I have to tell you, I'm going to pick Milwaukee in this series, which is interesting. But I'm going with the Bucks.
Wow. Trevor?
This is tough. I'm really back and forth because I do like this Milwaukee team. They shoot the 3 ball as a team at 39%, which I think is going to be critical. Chris Middleton is shooting it at 41%. Bobby Portis is shooting it at 47%. Bryn Forbes, 45%. So their role players this year are better 3-point shooters. They have more 3-point shooters around Giannis. Jack mentioned Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday shooting at 39%, which is a pretty efficient clip, as Ryan loves to say on this podcast. But Miami has Milwaukee's number. And for whatever reason, Giannis struggles against Bam Adebayo. But it's not just Bam Adebayo. I think you have to play great team defense to stop a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. And that's what Miami does. Miami's an excellent defensive team. Everybody knows their roles. And they're tough. They have dogs, as I like to say. Jimmy Butler is tough-minded. Bam Adebayo is tough-minded. Trevor Ariza is tough-minded. I even look at a guy like Udonis Haslem, who plays 3 minutes and gets ejected in his first game of the season. That's toughness. That's what wins playoff games is toughness, physicality, defense. And then you have the leader in the locker room, Jimmy Butler. But with all that being said, I am going to go with Milwaukee.
Oh my goodness.
That's because I just think this Milwaukee team has matured. I think Giannis is developing his outside game. I think Middleton and some of the other role players that were on this team last year will have learned a lot from that loss against Miami. And then you bring in Drew Holiday. You talk about tough-minded defense, physical. That's Drew Holiday in your grill, 94 feet, loves to get steals, loves to play physical on the guards. So for me, I think this Milwaukee team is better constructed than the bubble team to win a playoff series, especially against a team like Miami. I do think it's going to be a long series, though. I could see this going 6 or 7 games, but I do have the Bucks winning it. It's going to be an excellent series. I look at these first-round matchups, man. Dallas Clippers, Portland Denver, Milwaukee Miami. I mean, those are fantastic playoff series, and they're all in the first round, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, and that Dallas Clippers series stands out to me because you remember what happened last year. In particular, that Luka shot that won them that game. That was just unbelievable. But
Speaking of Dallas, actually, real quick, the Suns swept them this season. I just wanted to throw that.
Oh wow, that's amazing. And talking about the Suns, while the Heat don't have, and I wanted to go back to my comparison because while the Heat don't have that Booker type player, like Butler kind of has to play both those roles for that team, kind of, right, in my opinion, that leadership role and that on the floor, like shooting role, right? He's kind of he's their leading shooter in field goal attempts per game and everything. But I mean, I think that they both play well on both sides of the ball. I think they both rely on their role players coming off the bench to give them, quality minutes, to give them some scoring. Like you have Jay Crowders, right? I mean, you have the Cameron Paynes, you have the Cam Johnsons, right?
Cameron Payne, wow, love him. But continue.
I mean, he's like the Dragic for the Heat, right? They both. Or does Dragic start? No, he does not start. He comes off.
No, he doesn't. It's actually a great comparison.
Yeah, I mean, they both come off the bench. They provide nice scoring at the point guard position. I think these teams are pretty similar. Jack does make a good comparison with the Spurs, though. I mean, that's definitely a fair one. But I just wanted to. I really think that these teams are kind of similar. It's just Miami's more experienced, and that's why they'll go further in the playoffs. They have the experience.
Not more experience.
Plain and simple. They've made it to the NBA Finals before. Who's to say they can't go to the Eastern Conference Finals this year? Honestly, in my opinion, you guys both picked the Bucks. I look at this East, and I think Miami could beat any team outside of Brooklyn here. And I don't know the exact numbers where they'll meet Brooklyn in the playoffs.
They meet them in the second round.
Well, that's kind of unfortunate because if they could have met them in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think they could have easily made it there and played them kind of hard. But I think the Heat will still win the series. I really do. I just think that, Trevor said Miami has Milwaukee's number. I think that's true. And I haven't seen Giannis, take that next step in the playoffs yet. I need to see it. It's been years now where he's in the top of the East, 1, 2, or 3 every single year. And he always wins what? He wins one playoff series and he's out, right? I don't think he's won more than one playoff series, right? He's
gone to the East Finals before.
Did he go one time? Okay, he went one time.
That was the year the Raptors won it all with Kawhi. Yeah, they went to the East Finals.
All right. Well, point is I haven't seen him
debunking Ryan's argument.
I haven't seen him quite get there yet. I need to see it. And I think Miami's the better team. I really do. But we'll see what happens. I think it'll be really interesting playoffs. It'll be a fun playoffs. And I'll be watching the Phoenix Suns closely. Especially because Trevor and I have a fun little bet that the Phoenix Suns will not win more than one playoff series this year. And, I think I'll win that bet. I don't think they'll win more than one playoff series. I really don't. I'm feeling good about it.
If we get by LA in the first round, we're winning the West. Jack can attest to it.
Agreed.
Trevor has some good humor going on this podcast.
I look at it like the toughest opponent we're going to face is in the first round. No one's better than LA in our draw.
The thing is I think I agree with you, a healthy LA, but I really don't think LeBron is 100. He's not 100%, and Davis isn't either. I mean, Davis is shooting 25% from 3 this year. Like they're not healthy. They're not healthy.
Which is why I think we'll beat them. You're right.
Yeah,
right. We'll just walk over them then.
We'll sweep them instead of beating them in 5 games when they're healthy.
Quick little sweep. Bring the brooms out.
Okay.
I gotta bring
on whoever. Bring on the Trailblazers. We'll do the same thing, and then whoever's left, just walk straight to the finals. And I'm up 450. So there you go. 470. So there you go.
All right. Well, there we go. I guess we'll see what the Phoenix Suns can do. Talking a big game, both of you. We'll see if they can back it up.
No, you know why not finish this podcast with a little Suns discussion? We've kind of been a little. It's kind of been a little sparse. We've kind of thrown in some things here and there. Ryan's trying to throw in some shots, but I'm debunking all of them.
This is our time to do it too.
All right, here. Let's end the podcast on this. What's your final real predictions for the Phoenix Suns? How far do they go?
I want to go first, Jack.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's hear it.
I do want to say, Jack, Jack, how good does it feel to be in the playoffs again? I just looked at the Instagram post. The Suns announced that playoff tickets are on sale. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm going to see what money I can put together to buy some.
Yes.
And with that being said, realistically, I'm going to be as objective as I can because I'm not very objective when I talk about my Suns. I love them too much. There's too much subjectiveness from my heart. I really do think this team can beat anybody. I thoroughly believe it. I saw it in the regular season, right? The Phoenix Suns beat 28 out of 29 potential opponents. The only team we didn't beat this year was Brooklyn. So I don't think we can beat Brooklyn, but I think we can beat anybody else. And Ryan loves to go with this point of no playoff experience. There's plenty of playoff experience on this team. Chris Paul has plenty of playoff experience. Jay Crowder has plenty of playoff experience. Jay Crowder was in the finals last year against LeBron. Um, I look at a head coach like Monty Williams, who's been around the block. Willie Green, another fantastic assistant coach. He's been around the block. He's been in the playoffs before. So this Suns team has playoff experience, and Chris Paul is going to have these guys ready. Chris Paul is not going to let these guys feel unprepared.
Finals.
Chris Paul is not going to have these guys unprepared for game one, especially if it's the Lakers, right? Chris Paul knows, and Chris Paul said it in an interview with Charles Barkley. I'm sure you've both seen this interview. There's no ducking opponents in the West. The West has always been deep. The West has always been the better conference. Not always, but for the last few years, it's been the better conference.
For a while.
And there's just no ducking opponents. If you want to win the West, you're just going to have to go straight through and play who you play, and you're going to have to beat everybody. And I think that's that mindset that we have. I think there's a belief factor, and we have it. We have it all. I would say our weakness right now is our front court. Our front court and our physicality, which I mentioned, you do need physicality to win playoffs. We're not very physical, especially with our big guys. DeAndre Ayton, Frank Kaminsky are both very soft, big men. But we have shooting. We are still top 10 in offensive and defensive team rating. And we have leadership. And we have superstar talent. So for me, this team has it all. And they have the coach of the year, which helps. But Jack, I'll hand it to you. I really do think this team can go. I think this team can win the West. I'm being serious. Not saying they will, but I think they can.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points and you use a lot of numbers that I'm not necessarily going to use. But here's the reason why I think the Phoenix Suns can win the West. First off, they have Chris Paul, who knows how to defeat teams. Now, come playoff time, it hasn't been very successful. But what do you need in order to be successful in the playoffs? You need A, great guard play, B, great defense, and C, great shooting. And I think you look back at his New Orleans Hornets days, you look back at his Clippers days, you look back at
his Rockets
days, even.
Oh my gosh.
His Rockets days, they were successful.
One win away from beating that Golden State team.
They could have beat that Golden State team, and he got hurt. And honestly, that's the reason I believe that they lost that series. And then even you look at his Oklahoma City Thunder team, who wildly exceeded expectations. I think this Phoenix Suns team, better than any of those other playoff teams that he's been on, shoots better, defends better, and
his coach better.
He's there. Yes. And I think for those reasons that this Phoenix Suns team has the best chance out of all of Chris Paul's teams in the past to be successful and come out of the West. Now, will they? Who knows? I think this first series is going to be big. Now, if we do face LA, there is a high chance that we do flop out, which would be such a shame after
it would be
the great season that we've had. But at the same time, one thing I love is guys like Chris Paul and Jay Crowder, to use Trevor's words, are dogs. And they're not going to be scared of playing LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They're not going to be scared of playing the defending champions in the first round. And I think, honestly, this team still plays with a chip on their shoulder. And there are people like Ryan out there who doubt them and say they don't have playoff experience. They can't beat the defending champions. They can't beat a LeBron James or an Anthony Davis. And I think, keep it coming. Fuel them.
Feel it. Let's embrace the underdog mentality.
I think that's the thing that's going to push them. Exactly. What better time to prove everyone wrong than in first round playoffs. They're going to come out strong. They're going to come out CPs from your role player, A. Crowder, Cam Johnson, Cam Payne, Javon Carter. I think all those guys have got to step up. But that's the great thing about this Phoenix Suns team this year is it hasn't, in reality, it hasn't all just been Chris Paul and Devin Booker.
No, it hasn't.
It's been the bench. Everyone has contributed. And if you didn't watch that Spurs game a couple days ago, you saw it there that everyone contributes. Etuan Moore, a guy who doesn't play all year, goes 9 of 10, has 22 points in 20 minutes, hits the game-winning 3. Like, we know how to close games, and it's not just Paul and Booker, it's everyone on the team. So for that reason, I have a ton of hope in this team. I do think we could beat the LA Lakers, especially with the fact that they're not healthy this year. We beat them multiple times, healthy and unhealthy during the season. So I do have a lot of faith in this team. I think if we get past the Lakers, honestly, the Lakers, I think, are our biggest threat, whether they're healthy or not. So I think if you can get past them in a 7-game series in the first round, then who's going to stop you? That's my question. I'm not scared of the Jazz. The Clippers would be the team that I fear the most if we get past the Lakers. But we wouldn't face them until the Western Conference Finals. So who knows? It's going to be a very interesting playoffs. That's one thing I love about the West, too, is I think it's completely open.
Yep.
In the past, you don't see many upsets. If there's any upset, it's typically the 4 or the 5. But I think realistically, there's a chance that all the lower seeds could win.
Totally agree.
I don't think it will happen, but that possibility, as an NBA fan, having
Fantastic.
that possibility just makes the playoffs so much more interesting. So I'm very excited, and I think the Suns can go a long way. I'm looking forward to having $470 in my pocket and telling Ryan I told them so. So,
Ryan, I'll let you get the last word, but this is all I'm going to say.
Let me hear it.
Anybody who's doubting the Suns out there, bring on the Lakers. I want the smoke. And when we win the West, bring on Brooklyn. I want Brooklyn healthy. I want them cocky. And I want Brooklyn in full force because I just want all the smoke. And that's all I'm going to say. So go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. Look, there's a few. I'll make this quick because we've been going. But look, like you're telling me the Toronto Raptors back when they beat the Warriors were like, yeah, give us Klay Thompson, give us Kevin Durant. No, what are you talking about? No, they weren't. That would have been okay if every single player got injured on that team, so they had a free win in the NBA Finals. You wouldn't care. You wouldn't care if everyone got hurt on the Brooklyn Nets. You wouldn't care if Kyrie Irving decided to go leave for 2 weeks just because he wanted to. You don't care how you win the NBA Finals. You care that you win. Okay, that doesn't matter how. It matters that you win. All right. It doesn't matter if they're healthy or not. So I need to say something about that. Also, talking about the Suns, they're a great team. They've had a great year. Monty Williams is going to be coach of the year. He deserves it. These players are playing great. I'm telling you, I compare them to the Heat. I'll do it again. They can do what the Heat did last year. But you want to know the difference between last year and this year? I don't think their road is as easy as Miami's was last year. Miami had the opportunity last year. There was no Brooklyn Nets standing in their way, right? This year there is. That's why they won't get to the NBA Finals again. You look at the Suns in the West. Their first round matchup is probably going to be the Lakers. That is really, really tough. And you're right. Even if the Lakers aren't healthy, it's a tough matchup because the Lakers have size. And I don't want to get too deep into this whole matchup, but they have size. It's going to be tough for the Suns. The Suns beat them. You also brought up the Suns beat them in the regular season. Do you want me to tell you how much LeBron James cares that he lost in the regular season? He doesn't care at all. LeBron James doesn't care about the regular season. The Lakers don't care about the regular season. They're the 7th seed. They let him rest. Sure, he was hurt. They let him rest as much as they wanted. They don't care about the regular season. They care about playoff time. And when it comes to playoff time, there's nobody I trust in the NBA more than LeBron James. There's nobody I trust more. You go back and rewatch that 2018 NBA Finals run. You tell me there's anyone else you trust in the playoffs over LeBron James. Point being, it's a really tough first-round matchup. If the Suns were to win that, I would have a ton of respect for them, even if I still don't think they'll make the NBA Finals, even if they were to win that series. I think it's just really tough to win series after series after series against quality opponents that are in the West. The Nuggets, the Blazers, the Clippers. I think you'd beat the Mavericks pretty easily. But those 3 teams are the teams that I would be worried about in a series. The Nuggets would just grind you down. I think you'd beat them, but they grind you down. The Clippers in the Western Conference Finals would be a tough game. Point being, the Suns have the ability to do it, but I don't think they will because there's too many quality teams in the way with more experience in the playoffs than them. That's all I have.
Make a fair point.
I
My
have.
rebuttal to that is I got a jail cell in cell block C for LeBron James. It's in McHale jail.
Oh my goodness. All right.
I have one thing to respond as well.
Yeah, Jack,
Go
Jack, go ahead.
Listen to me, because this is I'm gonna speak this into existence right now, and I want you to hear it. And when it comes true in a couple weeks, I want to jump back on the podcast and tell you I told you so. Are you ready?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Suns in 7.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
I'm serious. Phoenix Suns in 7 games.
Yeah, wait, what's your prediction? If it's the Lakers, Ryan, what's your prediction?
If it's the Lakers win in 6 games at most. All right, they win in 6 games. Probably 6 games. Probably 6 games. All right, look, LeBron isn't gonna mess around. All right, you'll steal a few games early. It'll be 2-2 early. Lakers will win the last 2 games of the series. That's my prediction.
I got Suns in 5, maybe 4.
Okay, so we're doing some unrealistic predictions here, boys. This is where we wrap up the podcast, you know. But Jack, it was great having you back on. We'll see what happens with the playoffs these next few weeks. It's going to be really interesting, and I'll make sure to bring you back on when the Phoenix Suns are eliminated from the playoffs, so we can laugh about it a little bit. But until that time, good luck.
To Brooklyn. I can see that.
Good luck.
I can see that too.
It'll be
Brooklyn,
a fun playoff time, and we'll be back next week. So hope everyone enjoyed.